Hi everybody, it's Pamela Kubas with Heart to Heart, and so this week I celebrated my son's 11th birthday, and we had a lot of fun. It was a little more difficult this year because we just moved back from Korea, and so we didn't have a lot of people to invite, but he had so much fun with his new friends that he has made, and it's been really great. But as I started realizing he's 11, it kind of weighed heavy on my heart, as he's growing older. We're working really hard to help him become a strong man of God, man of integrity and strong character. And, we can't make him become that, but we can create an atmosphere that encourages that in his life, and so that he can choose to become that, hopefully. And so one of the things that I came across was in Genesis 19, and I'm going to share a little bit of that with you today. But as parents, one of the things that Steve and I believe in is that, we are here to help him become independent physically and economically and things like that, but we don't want him to become independent in that emotionally and spiritually and things, but we want him to seek God's guidance in those things. So we believe that our job as parents is to help him transfer dependence on us to God, so that he can seek God's guidance in his emotional life, spiritual, marital, parenting, social relationships, all of those things. And so, that's what we want to do. And, the hardest thing to deal with is sin. And, so often today we don't call it what it is. We just say, oh, you made a bad choice. Or, even in my career within counseling and psychology, we put a label on it. And we don't want to call it what it is, but it's sin. And so one of the things that I came across this week was Genesis 19. And in this story, Lot's living in a city that is just completely corrupted, and it's absolutely overcome by sin. And so an angel of God comes to the city and tells Lot, hey, you got to get your family out, just completely out, because if you don't, the city is going to be completely swept away and destroyed, and you and your family will be swept away with it. So the angel of the Lord tells him what's going to happen and tells him the consequences of not getting out. And, after this first warning and tells him what to do, what does he do? Lot hesitates. It says, but he hesitated in verse 16. And when I first read that, I so often just judge him. I'm like, are you stupid? Are you crazy? But see, I have, and we have the ability to see the whole picture, the whole story in full. But you know what? I was thinking about it. We do that. We hesitate. We know that what we're doing in our life, this sin that so easily entangles us, is not good for us, or these choices we're making, or this lifestyle we're living, or whatever it is. We're doing these things and they're bad for us and they're not healthy for us or even our family or whatever. It's creating a problem for us, but change is hard. And when we know we need to make a change, what do? We hesitate. We do, because it's uncomfortable, it's unknown, and it's just scary to change sometimes, even though we know that change is for the better. We know that, and it just helps us to, it creates this problem and we hesitate. And so it's easy to judge, but it's hard. And I think we have to come to that grip that it's not easy to do that. And no matter how great the outcome is, it's hard to change. But you know what? The angel of the Lord did not stop there. He didn't just tell them to get out and just figure it out and deal with it on their own. He actually gave them a plan. He gave them exactly what to do and how to deal with this. And I was thinking about this, that I, can take these instructions for my own life. And I can also teach these to my children in dealing with sin and things in our life that are not healthy for us and are not good for us when it comes to getting rid of sin and dealing with trying to obey the Lord. And what they are is, he said, the angel of the Lord came to him and he said, this is what I want you to do. He said, number one, run away from it. Run. He said, don't look back. And the third thing he said is, don't stay in the plains. Run for the mountaintops. Don't stay in the plains. And here's how I would apply these to our life in dealing with sin and obedience. run away from it. We have to run from the sin in our life that so easily entangles us. We can't sit there and just kind of dabble in it and say, today, I will do my best, but, it's not that bad. If we dabble in it and we play around with sin, it's never going to leave us. We are not going to get away from it. Because to be honest, a lot of the sin that so easily entangles us, we enjoy it. But the consequences are horrible. But it easily entangles us because in the immediate moment, we get pleasure from it. And so we can't dabble in it. When we know it's wrong and God's telling us not to do it, we have to just run from it. Hebrews 12:1 says that. It says, lay aside every weight and every sin that so easily entangles us. Sometimes it's not necessarily the sin. There's things in our lives that weigh us down, that prevent us from following God, prevent us from obeying. And we know what those things are. And if you don't, you can pray about them. But take those things that weigh us down, that the sin that so easily entangles us, and it says, lay it aside. Run from it. Get away from it. And it says, then it goes on, it says, let us run with endurance. So we're already running away. And it says, run towards. It says, run the race that lies before us. And that's what God's laid out in the Bible. He tells us what he wants for our lives. So run the race with endurance that is set out before us, keeping our eyes on Jesus. That's the only way to run from sin. We have to run towards something. And we can run towards Christ and his promises. And those things, those consequences of running towards Jesus are always good. Because he says that he has good things in store for us. So we have to run towards him, and we have to do it by keeping our eyes on Jesus. The only way I do that is to stay in his word. So I encourage you to do that. Number 2. So he said, run from it is number 1. And number 2, he says, don't look back. That's what Lot did. He hesitated, right? Later on, his wife actually did look back. And it was a horrible consequence. But he says, don't look back. Don't hesitate. I know it's hard. We do often hesitate in our obedience and our changing of our thing. But once you make that commitment, once you see what you're doing and you know it's wrong, and you see the behavior and you know it's not helping you and it's not healthy for you, make the commitment to change and don't look back. Don't hesitate. Make that commitment and do it. Because it just so easily entangles us if we don't. But if you're struggling, pray for God's help. Okay, it says right here, it says, but he hesitated. Because of the Lord's compassion for him, the men grabbed his hand, his wife's hand, and the hands of his 2 daughters. Then they brought him out and left him outside the city. We have people in our lives that can help us. The problem is we don't want to admit it. And you know what? I'm proud to be a Christian, but so often we have to feel like we have to put on this mask, and we go to church and we act like everything is okay. But if you do that, you won't have anyone to grab a hold of your hand and take you outside of that sin. You won't have anybody there because they won't know that you're struggling with anything. So first of all, be careful in who you choose to trust with what you're struggling with. But then when you find that person, let them know what you're struggling with. Let them be there to grab your hand and walk you outside that sin. That you need people beside you. That is God's compassion in your life. It's people who love you. That is how you're going to get away from it. So that's number 2. Number 3 is don't stay in the plains. And here's the thing. You will be swept away. If you play around with sin and you have it and you remain around it, you will be swept away. I'm a therapist, and when we deal with addictions and addiction recovery, one of the biggest things that we tell people is if you are surrounded by people who are okay with this kind of behavior, this addictive behaviors, and they're doing it and they feel like it's okay, or they're engulfed in it and they're ensnared by it, and you stay around those people, you will be ensnared once again. Because if you are around it and you are seeing it, you will become more desensitized to it. You will be feeling like it's okay. And guys, Satan is the great reminder, and he is the great deceiver. And so the more that you are around it and you are staying in those plains, Satan is going to be saying things like, hey, it's not that bad. It's okay. Look at these guys are doing it and they're fine. And if you do that, you will be once again find yourself ensnared, entangled by this sin and not feeling like it's a big deal. So I want to encourage you, you have to run from the sin. You have to not look back, do not hesitate. And don't stay in the plains. Remove yourself from being around that sin. Guys, it says in 1 Corinthians 15:33, bad company corrupts good morals. If you are staying around friends that are really close to you, that are not walking the same way that you want to walk, the way that God asks us to walk, you will be corrupted by their morals. We try to tell our kids at all time, you have to be careful by the people who are closest to you, because you will not bring them up, they will bring you down. Jesus did the same thing. His closest friends were the disciples. He had to be around people who were going to try to walk in a way that was pleasing to the Lord. We have to do that too. And then also in Proverbs 13:20, it says that whoever walks with the wise will become wise, but the company of fools will suffer harm. It's just true. You have to make wise decisions. You have to try and get away from the sin. You have to pray, ask for the God's help. You also have to not look back, make the commitment, press on, and don't stay in the plains. It is possible to get away from the sin that so easily entangles. We are not alone. So I hope that this has been an encouragement to you. I hope that you can use these guidance also for your children, use it for yourself. I know that I will, and I just pray that you can get away from the sin that so easily entangles your life.